Welcome to a coaching training session. My name is Khera, publisher of morebusiness.com, and I'm joined today by two very special people. Dr. Jeff Kaplan, who's Leadership Coach of the Year. He's going to be our coach that guides Andy Lee through a coaching session. And Andy is a technical lead at an AI startup. And so I'm going to let Jeff take it from here. I think you're going to enjoy this coaching session. Take a look.
Andy, first of all, thank you so much for being here. It takes a ton of courage to show up.
Thank you.
And right. And what I'll say already from what I know about you, what I said to Raj before you got on, is you are just such a genuinely grateful person. And I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah.
That's such a
So
compliment.
well, let's all take this kind of as a gift. So so let's say we have about, maybe 15, 20 minutes. We'll see where this goes. But what do you want to focus on today, Andy?
So the other day, I believe Jeff asked me a very simple but very inspiring question, I would say. So the question is, what keeps you up at night? So for me, um, the answer is quite simple, right? So like most of people, when I can't sleep, I just think about the bad decisions and the mistakes. What could I do? What could I done better versus what did I actually do? So there's a gap between um the reality and the things that I'm doing, self-reflection. So I'm the things that I can improve. So it comes in my mind, it comes into like two parts. So the first is the self-reflecting part. I love self-reflecting, and I believe that adds more like sympathy, empathy to the work, and also being able to think in another perspective is very important to me. But sometimes it's adding me the gap between a reality and what's improved. There is a pressure from that layer. And then also the second part of this question is how can I better to make decisions in such a fast-paced AI era? So that, when I do self-reflecting, maybe I won't feel that kind of pressure if I already made that good decision when I already have, good results in this fast-paced going AI era. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, and then you can correct me, is on the front end, it's about making good, quick decisions,
Yeah.
right? And then on the back end, it's you've made all those decisions throughout the day, and now you're reflecting, right? And so that you feel there's a lot of this pressure, right, that you put on yourself, and then there's this gap. If you're making good decisions, the gap is smaller. But also, if you
Exactly.
learn to turn down the pressure, the gap is also smaller because you're not putting so much pressure on yourself.
Exactly. So
Is
there are
that
two
fair?
ways of fixing this problem. Yeah.
So, okay. So at the end of our time together, what do you want to be different around this pressure dial, we'll call it, and decision making?
Um, so I think I would not only like to learn some like methodology, like the application side. So those are very easy and very go to kind of practice tools. But I want to learn something more on the bigger picture, right? So I know it's very hard for somebody to tune their pressure threshold like down and just to not think about the better decisions, the better choices. So maybe developing a better kind of mindset of how to handling decisions and day to day, whether it's big strategy level or just small team level decisions. I'm able to handle that pressure and better reflect. I don't want to give up the reflecting part, but I just want to make sure that, all the parts are working for each other. Yeah.
I get the sense it's like the mind is kind of always on,
Yeah.
right? The idle is high, right? You don't want to turn the idle off completely,
Yeah.
but you want to just turn it down a little bit so you can actually have some clarity and not put undue pressure on yourself. Is that
Exactly.
fair?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what would be possible, or what would it mean to you, Andy, if you were able to experience less pressure, right, around your self-reflection, but also make better, quicker decisions? What would that mean for you?
Are you suggesting one, or it can be
Yeah, like,
multiple?
well, both, right? Both. Like, I want you to imagine, like, this is the present state, which we described. And now imagine this future state where you're making quick decisions, you feel good about the decisions. And then when you reflect, you're noticing some nuances of how you might do things differently, but you're not being so hard on yourself. What is it like in that new place?
I guess I would start with the self-reflecting part. So, since the question started with, what would you do? What keep you up at night, right? So I always do the self-reflecting during bedtime or like rest time. So that's when people, I think, at least myself, are most sensitive. So that brings a lot of like thoughts, um, sensitive thoughts. How can we make things better? Those kind of thoughts to me. So the way I'm thinking that
Right.
to improve that is, maybe um make myself not that sensitive. So make another time slot for self-reflecting.
S-
But
y-
I'm also worrying that, maybe not that
Right.
sensitive will kind of affect the self-reflecting.
So,
I'm gonna pause for just a minute, Jeff, if you don't mind. I'm gonna just
yeah.
ask a couple of questions to both of you. Andy, I'm gonna start with you. So, what I hear from you, and being a technical person myself, um, I know we try to get the answers kind of like just right, and we really do a lot of deep thinking. I'm sensing you're doing a lot of deep thinking in terms of what Jeff's asking you. Is that what's going on in your head? Are you thinking a lot about deeply about the question, the root of the question, the possible answers of the question, or are you thinking of it differently?
Um, there there is a lot of deep thinking. And in my mind, I'm trying to pull up scenarios or actual experiences so I can give a more detailed response. But sometimes I believe this way my response will be limited into some aspects. So I'm trying to break that box. I'm trying to think. Um, it's kind of the other way of self-reflection. So I'm think out of the box, and then how can I approach this question with the bigger picture, and not just the branches that you mentioned and the technical thinking. Yeah.
And I can appreciate the logical steps behind the way you're approaching this. And Jeff, what I'd like to ask you is, how is Andy's way of responding different because of his technical background that you might see as different with people who do not have a technical background?
Yeah, well, it feels like Andy's trying to get it right. And when you were just answering Roger's question, like, I'm like, there's the Andy I'm looking for, right? You were just like, you said, get out of that box, right? They just came out of your mind without filtering the flow chart, if this, then this, if this, it was just so authentic, I'm trying to get out of the box. I'm like, there we go, right? The box, right? Let's talk about getting out of the box, right? So that gets me excited because, what I'm self-managing is, I've got 100 ideas about what to do in the evening, to turn the dial down and, to less pressure. I've also self-managing, not wanting to, you know, find out a little bit more about the history around that because it's not relevant. Right. And so, yeah. So where I'm at is I've been kind of jotting different things, mostly around metaphor from what I'm hearing from Annie to help us both get to kind of the essence that we're kind of discovering, right? And then the solution would just kind of flow from there.
Okay, so w- what, and maybe I jumped the gun. What would you do differently, Jeff, to get Andy out of the, I'll call it boxed thinking or boxed responses, so that he can feel more free and more authentic, and because that's when the breakthroughs happen. What? What do
So,
you need to do to get him there?
well, one of the things I tried doing, right, is I talked about the current state and the future state, right? So where we are right now is we're hanging out in problem land. I feel like we're in a swamp and there's a bunch of leeches and we're trying to avoid all the leeches, right? Like, this is the heavy problem, right? This is what I'm trying to solve, right? And then over here is like, the new you, right? And so, so I literally purposely used a gesture. When I did that, I was even trying to think, is Andy seeing that to the right? Because I want that to be his right. Like literally that's what was going on my mind, to try to get Andy, to try to get you, to try to get him into a different state. So we'll get there. We'll just keep, you know, sparring until we get there. But I will tell you now, what works well is don't do too much thinking. Just, even me and my best coaching, I'm opening my mouth and I'm not quite sure what's coming out next.
All right. So now
Right.
that's our timeout. I'm going to let you get back to your coaching. Go ahead.
So let's start there, right? So let's hang out on the edge, right? Because I, I literally, I'd say, dear Andy, of like, let's play on the edge and, step off and not know where we're going, right?
Sure.
So right? And so let's both give ourselves permission to, to play and, not to, have it perfect. But so let me kind of summarize where I think we're at, right? So one is, let me ask you this. When you say self-reflection, I have an idea, but tell me more what it means to you, what self-reflection means to you, and how it's helpful for you.
So most of my self-reflection kind of starts just blaming myself, right? Why didn't I do that? Why
Mm,
didn't I say that? Right?
right.
If I say that, could it could it make that conversation more smooth, with better results or even better relationship with other people, right? So those are the
Right.
things that I first think about, right? Those are, I
Right.
would say, painful, but it is a opportunity to think, what are the other opportunities? What are the other chances that could happen in the day-to-day, like, challenges? Yeah.
Yeah. Can I jump in, Andy?
Yeah.
What I'm not hearing is the part of self-reflection where you're going, wow, I did really good at that. I really liked how I handled that, or that was a great decision. Is there any of that self-reflection going on at night?
Sometimes, but I would say it's less than blaming, trying to correct the
Right.
mistake or those kind of stuff, because those are more harsh memories. But I believe, for those, happy, confident, kind of, self-reflecting, I would say those most happens at the night with, the things that, success, the outcome that happened on that night. But
Uh,
some of the self-reflecting for self-blaming can be, way back. And, sometimes it's just a self-reminding kind of procedure for me to, oh, remember, do not make that mistake again.
so don't need a ton of detail, but just so that we can kind of get into it, what's the one that feels the most heavy for you? Perhaps that when it shows up, it's the highest volume, or it's the most reoccurring.
I would say, um, word choices, when I'm talking to people. So, in different circumstances, in different, conversations, there 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 are different, word choices where the better way to deliver the things that you want to, other to understand. So I believe sometimes I I I have better approaches to make other people happy. Not only, happy about the things that I'm talking about, but the way I'm approaching to them can make them feel better, in general.
What drives you?
Uh, can you elaborate more? Like
Yes, I
what?
knew
Yeah.
you were gonna say that. Like, what are you talking about? Just what drives you? What gets your engine going?
I think seeing myself improve. So basically,
Wow.
the the sometimes happen self-reflecting that is, I feel happy about it. So those parts I really appreciate that, but I know that most of the situation is gonna be harsh and painful for that. So yeah, but I also like it really encouraged me to think about, oh, I really did this perfectly, or I at least did this with, the best that I could. So those things
Y-
kind of.
there's what's showing up for me a lot here is this idea of being right and wrong, and it's a little bit what Rod talked about earlier, right? What if let's pretend we live in a new world? What if there was actually no right way or wrong way to be? There was just a way to be, and everybody has different ways to be.
That would be very relaxed, to be honest. Yeah, because for me, coming from a very technical education background, um, there is a always optimal solution, like in term of math, stats, or like the data that we're currently very trending. A lot of companies are using. There is a certain of trend
Mhm.
or um, variable that we can observe that is optimized, that is
And
optimal for this situation.
yeah, and what's even trapping you more is you're building out this AI coaching engine that is
Exactly.
looking for the optimal way to respond to people, right? So you're feeding the gremlin that's keeping you up at night. We're not
Yeah.
getting smaller, we're getting bigger.
Exactly.
So so let's hang out here for a minute in this world where there actually is no right or wrong way to be when it comes to human interaction. There are ways that have more or less of an impact of what we're looking for, but let's just hang out in this idea that there's no right and there's no wrong way. So, for example, let's just try to make this real.
Mhm.
If you can, in like 45 seconds or so, give me a small snippet of one negative thought that you had, like, oh, that was that was embarrassing or that was not right way to say something.
I would say like, um, first approach when we first approach to our team members, it's better to um help them to understand either myself and also the project itself. So sometimes I spend too much time on the project instead of getting connected with the member themselves. So um that would be a very specific scenario in my yeah.
Okay, and what makes you say it's too much time on the project and not enough time with the members?
Um, I would say, because from my experience, ice breaking is such a important part of building a relationship and also building a meaningful outcome. So, um, from my memory experience, I kind of just spend very less time self introduction, everybody one sentence, and then soon just jump into the project because I really want to things get going and make the
I
efficiency.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a disconnect for me there. So in one level, you're so self-aware. I mean, like, so let's acknowledge that.
Hmm.
Like, how many people, Raj, think about this. How many people, you know, at Andy's stage of career, and particularly with a background in engineering and statistics, who says like, yeah, like, we really need to pay more attention to the people stuff, right? The disconnect for me that I have though is that to me seems like a light adjustment versus the heaviness of the blaming. And I'm using the word embarrassing because I've heard you say that word before in connection with this. Um, that y- w- does it feel like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being it's really like at night when you have some of these thoughts of, I wish I did that differently. Even the language, by the way, I wish I did it differently versus I should have done that differently. Can you feel the difference in that?
Yeah.
Right? Are you kind of a should on yourself kind of a guy? Do you should on
Yeah, I
yourself?
should have, yeah, done.
Yes, yes. So just one little, not to jump too quickly into suggested, 5-minute homework assignments, but would you be willing when you catch yourself shoulding on yourself, saying, I should have done that, I should have done that? I'd invite you to just pivot it to say, I wish I had done that. Right
Uh,
now, right now, say I should have done fill in the blank. I should have done what?
excuse me.
Like, well, like one that you just presented to me was I should have spent more time on the people thing and and not as much time on the project, right?
Yeah, or I should make that decision because I could have do more researches. I could have done more you know, work on that.
Good. So I should not have made that decision because I
Yeah.
could have done this. All right. Say that again right now.
So
Just say,
I should have I shouldn't have make that decision because I haven't done so many research or search jobs.
period. Great. Now notice how that feels.
Hmm.
Now say it again and say, oh, I wish I made a different decision.
I
Just
wish
say
I
that.
made a different decision. Yeah.
Period. How does the two feel? How does it they impact you? How do they impact you
The first
differently?
one feels more guilt. I'm trapping myself into I'm giving myself more pressure so that I can memorize it more,
Y-
you know.
y- Yes. And now, newsflash: if you take nothing away else from today, here's a newsflash, Andy. You should have done exactly what you did because of who you are, your upbringing, your training, your assumptions, your biases, your current level of skill and knowledge. You should have done it because you did do it. I
Mhm.
know that seems like a mind trick right there, but what I'm saying is like you're beating it. It's a little bit like somebody with no legs beating themselves up because they're not running fast enough down the street.
Mhm. I get
Y-
what you're
y-
saying. So just I guess it's okay to be me, you know. It's okay to sometimes even I think it's mistake. It's not really a
It,
mistake in others' perspective.
it may or may it's not a it depends on, I don't want to get too preachy, but it depends on the context, the people that you're speaking to. For some people, that's exactly what they want.
Mhm.
Right? So all I'm saying is there's all these different variables. And to me, I love this phrase, it's okay to be me. We're gonna come back to this if you want.
All right, Jeff,
Mhm.
Andy, I've been trying to hold my tongue because I've had so
I
many
know you have.
questions to ask throughout this whole thing. Let me dissect a little bit of what I saw. Now, uh, Andy, very thoughtful in his responses, and you saw him kind of stuck in a box in a world that he's currently living in, and you extremely quickly painted a scenario. What if we had a world in which you could just be? And Andy, the speed of your response, which by the way, if you're designing software, maybe that's a factor you should look at is the speed of the response of the person being coached. The speed of your response was the fastest I have seen in this dialogue. And it was so genuine. And the expression on your face melted like, "That's that nice." It was that instant. It was that like you could capture it. And Jeff picked up on it. And so he went with it further. If I'm observing this correctly, Jeff,
Mhm. Mhm.
I saw him go with it further to then say, let's paint a picture of what that looks like so that you could crystallize in your head what that was. And then he walked you through an experience so you couldn't just see it as a visual person, but you could feel as a human being. Jeff, am I correct in what you did?
Yeah, exactly, right? So generally speaking, try to stay away from feeling questions. But what happened was about 2.5 minutes ago, I decided I was going to abandon, particularly given the fact that we're talking about modeling AI coaching, but I decided to abandon the feeling like rule because Andy, I could see that there was a feeling shift and we weren't getting anywhere with like, let's hang here now. Right. So I'm like, okay, I just want you to feel the difference. Exactly. So that is why I did the should wish thing so that we could start to see, right? Because what I'm trying to do is get you in this other world, look at this other world, this other way of being.
Andy, when you were responding to Jeff and you remember that moment where you very quickly said, "Oh yeah, that would be great if there's like a world I could live in like that." What went through your head that made you respond so quickly?
So I guess it's all the experiences, all the rules that I've learned throughout the years. So they kind of gave me how should I approach certain things with certain kind of style. But after
Right.
hearing Jeff said that, it's kind of like a mind trick that just takes that limit, take those rules out. And then I literally feel more relaxed. And then, oh,
Right.
if there's no one judging you, why would you care if that's a mistake or something, a wrong decision per se? So that really um, creates a very vivid kind of picture of how can things be think in a different way or a different relaxed kind of setting.
And Jeff, is it safe to say that what you're doing, what coaching does, is help somebody realize where they are, even though they know they want to go somewhere else, they don't always know what that other place is. And sometimes you just sort of have to paint a picture here, maybe another picture there to see which direction resonates with them the most and then help them get there. Because Andy, I just like literally and this is why I didn't want to stop Jeff's questioning while I had like 10 questions to ask while you were going through that transformation. But I could almost see you go from, oh, yeah, why not? And that awareness came to you. I saw it visually on your face. So that's my timeout for right now. Jeff, go ahead, continue.
Sure. I'll just in response real quick. Right. And so, because you asked the question about is coaching a lot about, painting this other picture. Right. And so a couple things, right? So Andy and Raj, coaching we're trying to get from a point A to a point B, right? And so a lot of mistakes I think coaches make is somebody says, I want to do X. And we don't even challenge assumptions of, well, what do you mean by X? Like when I said, well, what do you mean by self-reflection? Right. And then by asking that, because I have an idea what self-reflection means, because it's what we do all the time. But you said blaming. I'm like, oh, we're talking about blaming, right? So getting clear what we're talking about, what we're defining. But then the B, like I want to know what's the future state, right? Current state, got it. We're getting there, got it. What's the future state? But what we started to do a little bit ago, I want to pick it up now, is perspective work. So one what happens oftentimes is we get stuck in a position, right? So, for you, it's a should, like that's a position. I should be. And we're just trying to show different perspectives. And so, Andy, what I'll say to you just to kind of get this back engaged is first of all, I want to acknowledge you. My experience when I've spoken with you, this is like the second or third time I've really spoken with you, is you're really quick to understand something. So something that I think would be a really important takeaway that you seem to have picked up pretty quickly, particularly for someone that says your word choice, you worry about your word choice sometimes, is when I said there actually, when it comes to the people stuff, there actually is no should. There is no right or wrong. It's just, did what I do and the way I did it and what I said and the way I said it, did that have the impact I wanted? And if it did, great for that context at that time for that person. But for a different person or a different time or a different context, maybe not. Right. And so we look to pivot. Right. But then you quickly said, you know, it's okay to be me. And like, yes, that is the essence of what I'm saying. It's okay to be you. So can you just, you don't have to do this, but could you just say that phrase 3 times? And Raj, notice how he looks exactly, right? Even just the thought of saying that, but can you still say it 3 times? It's okay to
Yeah,
be me.
yeah. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be me. And, it's okay to be me.
Beautiful. Now, right now, what's happening for you right now? What are you thinking or feeling right now?
I think I'm just turning that picture into, I don't know, into my reality. But it still takes some time. It still takes some thinking that, oh, like this is okay. Cause like back then my mind was like, oh, you can't think that way. Cause, the rules that you've been
Right.
following and all of that. But now I'm actually bringing that picture into some aspect of my life. So I actually sees the possibility in some of the scenarios, and I'd be like, oh, it's just okay. Get relaxed and it will be fine.
That's great. So now you're getting picture, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to give, you don't have to, but do you want to give some more color to like one of those scenarios and what that looks like?
Sure. So I think for decision making, right? So that is more the
Good.
part I'm blaming myself. So I did
Yep.
not make
Yeah.
good decisions or anything.
Yep.
But I think a better way to think that um now is just um use other decisions to make that decision better. It's okay to have one decision that is not that good. It's decent, but just make sure that all the decisions and the follow ups moves are are still on the pace of this picture. So it's it's not about blaming anymore. It's about how to from there and just keep going.
Yeah, beautiful. Right. From there and keep going. I, I think it was Mark Zuckerberg that said, they basically just keep fixing it along the way.
Mhm.
Right? And Raj, having built a few, tech, companies, knows what it's like to go fast and just keep fixing it, fixing it, right? I heard an expression once, it's not it's not necessarily as much about making the right decision as making the decision that you made right. Right? Right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
right? So gather your data, make the best decision you can based on the data that you have and the time that you have to make it, and then you make it right. What does that mean to you? What is that expression, rather than making the right, not always making the right decision, but making the decision that you made right?
I guess that at that moment that very resonate with because it's not about the the things, the project, the works that we work on. It's more about myself, how I sees myself to do it right, or how I see myself to put this into the best that I can. So it's about perspective. It's not about oh I'm in charge of this job, so I have to in term of this job, it's giving a 90% grade or 100% grade. It's about me seeing how I can approach this in the best way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in a way that works for the moment,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because what's the best way in this moment may not be the best way in a new moment.
Mhm.
Think
Jeff,
of
I want to ask you, sorry, I just want to ask you
no,
one
go
question about maintaining the awareness that Andy is having now, because you're in a coaching session. You can guide him if you feel like he needs some additional words from you to refocus to make sure that he's feeling empowered enough to not feel bad about decision making, which is what this topic sort of ended up being
Mhm,
about.
mhm.
And so he did mention something at the very beginning of the conversation, and that is he usually does a lot of this reflection at night when you're lying alone, trying to fall asleep and can't. Those demons sometimes come back.
Mhm.
Is there something to land the plane you would recommend to him that when you're not there, when a coach is not there, that he can use a tool something for him to kind of refocus.
Yeah, there's 20 things that came up much earlier in the conversation, but and so we're looking at this two ends, and so, we'll pull this together in the next few minutes, right? Um, but the front end is decision making, right? And so, and notice, by the way, I did not share with you decision making tools and this and that, which I'm happy to do, but right, but right now it was about, because you said the bigger picture, right? There's a bigger picture here,
Yeah.
right? Um, so let me ask you before we get to like nighttime stuff and self-awareness piece, where are you now relative to where you were at the beginning of the conversation?
I think I'm more confident that when I'm doing self-reflection, I won't I won't blame myself that much. I think that's the key part of not blaming. It's just okay to be, to be me, and okay to do to do things the way that I do it.
Yes, and learning, beautiful, and learning as you go, right? Like, oh, okay, that didn't work today, okay, here's my invitation, is just make it into a business problem, rather than a me wrong, me needs to fix myself problem,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, okay, this thing that I said in this way for this group in this moment, right? I wonder what would have happened if we spent more time on checking in and doing some of the people culture building stuff. Maybe let's try that kind of thing, right?
Mhm.
And so sounds good, but notice how light that feels.
Yes.
O- Okay. On the other end of it, to Rod's point, I'm going to suggest something. Um, would you do me a favor? And actually, we can do it now so that it'll be anchored to this conversation. Do you have like post-it notes like near you by any chance,
Oh,
or
I can grab my
something?
iPad real quick.
You don't have. Yeah, do it. Grab something to write with.
Okay.
So Jeff, you and I are old school. We actually carry stuff to write with
I
a pen
know.
and paper down,
I, I,
but
I know.
I don't know
I've
that that's
had.
something that everybody else does.
I know. It's okay.
He
You
probably
just
has a sticky note app. I'm
you
sure he
just
can use.
aged me. I do too. But all right. So open it to something that would be convenient to open it at night.
So my notepad, I guess, for
Uh,
yeah, my
what do you know?
phone, my
Electronic
everything. Yeah.
notepad. Okay. So do me a favor. Write this phrase, and you can always change it later if you want.
Mhm.
It's okay to be me.
Like
Okay.
that.
Okay. Perfect. Yep. Okay. Now, um, tonight. So we're going to start here tonight. Um, First of all, would you be willing to read that before, like when you wind down and you're kind of doing your self-reflection? Would you be able to read? Would you be willing to read that
I can promise tonight, but I won't promise, like how many
every day
days
for the rest
after.
of your life?
Yeah.
Right. What do you think the impact would be tonight when you do that?
I'm not blaming myself anymore, at least tonight. So I won't I would think, especially you mentioned um the self-reflection can be happy, can be
Right.
self-admiring, self-encouragement. So I would try to do that. If I already set the mindset into, oh, it's okay to be me, then I'm so much more willing to, admit some of the things that I did, other
Y-
than, and then go from
y-
there. And then it's
y-
not about, oh, that's it. I still need to go. It's another way of reflecting, I guess.
Yes. 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 Notice that we're not throwing out the baby with the bathwater here, right? We're not saying no self-reflection, right? It's okay to be me means that it's not your being who is wrong. It's, oh, like, okay, like what are some things I could improve and what are some things I did well? And so moving forward, I'm not going to ask you to commit to it, but some of as a habit, which you could start doing as you do some self-reflection, things that seem to work and why they seem to work. I don't want you to forget that part, why they seem to work. Because again, what you do in one context may work or may not work in a different context, right? You're not the only equation here, right? It's not just you, it's all these other variables. And then also, yeah, what I would like to improve. So this worked well, or this had this impact, and here's some thoughts about, some positive impact and some, things that didn't work that I might try to do differently.
That's such an eye-opening, like suggestion, because that just reminds me. I don't remember what book was it, but the book talks about most of the successful leaders are following certain patterns of doing things right. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, oh, how specifically you approach to a certain stuff, but it just find the patterns, how you do those stuff. And by doing self admiring or like self encouragement, that just kind of um helps to formulate, oh, what is the pattern, what is the things that I need to focus on instead of those small mistake or you know setback.
Ye Yeah, or that you would like to focus on. Again, like, to making it a little softer than need to focus on,
Mm.
right? Like to focus on, right? Again, with this team, right? Because 'Cause we're talking about in the context of a particular team, in this particular point in time. Alright, to close this off, what else do you want to say, Andy?
I think I'm pretty confident today, and I really understand like what's the ultimate purpose of self-reflecting. So we always use self-reflecting, put ourselves into others' shoes, but I think I'm kind of getting the essence of self-reflecting. It's not about blaming, about
Yes.
just all of the mistakes. It's
Y
about looking forward and learn the pattern.
Yes, yes. It feels so much lighter, doesn't it? It does to
Yeah,
me. Yeah, will you do me a favor too? Today's Thursday. Next Thursday or Friday, not this obviously, but next Thursday or Friday, would you just shoot me an email or text or something? Just let me know kind of how you're doing with this.
sure, I definitely will. And I
That
will
would be great.
definitely do watch the notes
Y-
before I go to sleep
y-
today.
yeah, and hey, if you feel up to it, maybe every night before you text me, right, and or reach out to me, but I'm not going to hold you to it.
Sure, sure. That sounds perfect.
Jeff,
All right.
this is so Andy. Thank you very much for being so open and so genuine in your responses. Jeff, just for the people watching out who are doing coaching, uh, you started this entire conversation a certain way, you ended it a certain way. What do you usually use as bookends to open and close a coaching session?
So oftentimes I'll have people, by the way, this is my notes from the day. um,
Mhm.
and mostly it's just my way of capturing something. So I'm not thinking of that rather than being with you. Um, so usually I'll have people fill out a prep form. What do you want to focus on today at the beginning? I asked, Andy, right? I asked Andy, coming in here, to be prepared to what you wanted to focus on. And then usually at the end, I'm circling back, right? And so the thing that I wanted to track the most, like I literally at the beginning had pressure and decision making. And so I knew that we were playing in those two areas. In the middle for this conversation, in the middle, it became clear that they were kind of actually intertwined. And it was really all around this pressure because the pressure came from the decision making. And so they were sort of connected. And so at the end, I just wanted to connect back to to that to that piece. The other thing I'll say though is at the very beginning when Andy, when you had talked about, at nighttime, I mean, I, y- you know, I built a whole company on habit change and wrote the book and all these. So my mind had all kinds of things about the sleep habit, right?
Right.
And so I wanted to share all these strategies, particularly because you said I wrote practical tools, but you said something to that effect, right? I knew that you wanted that. But, in this kind of coaching, different from plugging in something into ChatGPT, right? And very similar to Athena, which is the app that that Andy, that you're developing for leadership coaching. Before we kind of just give answers, we're trying to get really clear of what's the essence, what's the thing, because the how comes out almost automatically, as I said earlier in the session. And it really sort of did here with you, Andy. Once we got really clear what it was, then there was like that, like there was a then unhookedness, right? There was a little bit of like mini transformation.
And at the very end, though, Jeff, you did ask,
Homework.
well, not just homework, but you asked what's different.
Accountability.
Well,
Yeah.
you said what's
Well,
different.
I did. That's right. So I didn't want to. So one of my self-management tools is to not over prescribe, right? So I just, I said what's different, and I was going to get more specific. I'm like, actually, I'm just going to shut up and just see what you say, right? The more that the coach is dumb, right? Whether it's an AI coach or whether it's a human coach, right? And really rely on your expertise, we're going to get a lot more. In fact, when I asked you, Andy, what drives you, right? When I opened my mouth, I was in my mind, I was connecting what drives you, because I was going to be more specific. And I'm like, no, I realize this question is going to seem way out of left field if I just shut up right now. But I want you just to answer that question and see where you take it, because the coachee is the expert. And we do a exercise when we're teaching people coaching skills, and we ask people to pick 3 questions before they even start coaching. And then Raj, you would say, Jeff, ask your second question. And so Andy, you would just, no matter where we were in the conversation, I would ask you whatever question I had predetermined, and you would answer that. And oftentimes that can give you the greatest insight.
That's very interesting. And I did notice that you resisted or didn't even go into a direction where you dove deep into the actual things he was having self-doubt about. You were actually
Right.
focused, you were zoomed out enough to say, I'm not going to focus. He could be thinking about one specific situation at work or something that happened after work with a team member, but
Correct.
you didn't go there. That would be more advisory. Whereas you stayed zoomed out and you wanted to focus more on the self-doubt behavior as opposed to the incident.
That's correct. It would have frustrated the heck out of Andy if I kept telling him in my smart way, here's all here's all the things that you could do, right? And Andy would be so gracious because of who you are. But the reality is it's frustrating when we're trying to work on something deep. There's a big difference between whether it's an AI coach or a human coach that holds you, the coachee, as whole, creative, and resourceful. Like, I know that you have it within you. You have all the answers within you. We are creating a safe space for those answers to emerge. And we're in this together. It's a partnership. But if I just kept going, solving your problem for you, it would get frustrating. And even if you didn't feel frustrated in the moment, I would be holding you small. I would be saying that I know more than you about you. And that's not this. This is a partnership where together we discover, together we create new perspectives, and together we come up with solutions.
With that, Jeff, Andy, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
again,
you.
Andy, for your courage and for being here.